Yo, what's up guys? Today I'm going to be giving you guys some general tips and tricks to help you win more games in Reload. Now I'm going to be talking about both duos and solos, but most of the video is going to be focused on solos. Anyways, without further ado, let's jump right into it. So starting off with duos, I'm going to start talking about the early game. So in duos, you probably want to have a more safe drop spot where you make sure that you aren't shambles going into the mid game. Now I would suggest landing somewhere like Twisted Trailers or Shady Stilts on Oasis and Sandy Sheets in Venture. These drops are rarely contested and allow you to get just some starter loot pretty quickly. Now, my second tip is that you should always get a couple hundred mats before going into your first fight. If you go into your first fight with only 100 builds or less, you're probably going to lose it just because you're going to run out of mats. And it takes a lot longer to just re-get all of your loot back and re-farm a ton of mats. And this whole process of just surviving through the mid-game can be avoided if you just get a couple hundred mats going into your first fight. Now, let's move on to the mid-game. So my first tip for mid-games is that you should probably try to look for duos who have just respawned, and it's pretty easy to see them since there's a big rift in the sky right above where they are. These fights are obviously going to be easier since one of the two players in the duo is completely shambles and only has a gray AR. And you should also be trying to find fights on duos that are shambles. For example, you shoot one of them and it hits for white. That's how you know they're shambles, and you could probably just pick up a free kill. Also, you should try to take advantage of supply drops. So if you're shambles, then you should try to land near a supply drop and try to get some loot back, since they almost always have a shotgun and some heals for you. And on the flip side, if you're playing really well and you're doing great, then you should try to find fights near supply drops, since players near there are most likely shambles and trying to get that supply drop loot for their own. Now, I don't really have too many tips for endgames, except that you should probably be trying to take minis and bigs, or maybe slap splashes and bigs, slap splashes and minis, something like that. Anyways, let's move on to the best loadouts in duos. For shotguns, I would suggest carrying either the Pump or the Havoc. I think it's really just personal preference. I take either one just depending on how I'm feeling on the day. And for secondaries, I would suggest either carrying the Twin Mag SMG or the Hammer AR since they're just so powerful. For movement, carry either Shockwave Grenades or a Grappler. Either one is good. And for heals, I already talked about that. Slap flashes, minis, or bigs. Anyways, now let's talk about solos. For early game, I would still suggest landing at a safer POI since you only have 3 lives and you don't really want to waste them early. Now, this is a little bit more of a tip for ranked, but I would definitely suggest getting a few hundred metal if you can from your drop spot. If you don't plan on getting a 20 bomb, your best way to get metal is just during the early game. However, if you do die off spawn, then it's very important that you know what to do, since losing all of your lives early on in the game is very bad. When you die, try to land on like a few chests. Don't go to a POI or a major location, since there's probably going to be a player there who already has loot. From there, kind of just scrap together as much loot as you can, and if there's a supply drop close to you, go for it. You have to full send the supply drops, since that's really your only way to get decent loot. Most of the time, if there's anyone who's just respawned and they're gliding towards a supply drop, the second they hear you shoot a gun that isn't a ranged AR, they know that you already have loot and there's no point really pushing the supply drop since they won't have a shotgun and you most likely will. However, if you're gliding towards a supply drop and you hear a player shooting at you, disengage since most of the time supply drops spawn with like 2 or 3 very close to each other, so you can just go to the other one and grab that one instead. Now, during mid-game, you probably just want to try to find as many fights as you can. I wouldn't be too worried about keeping all of your lives going into endgame since it's really just like 50 over shield. I would suggest try to find players out of the air. Don't shoot them while they're in the air, shoot them the second they land, since while they're in the air, it's a lot easier for them to get away from you. Now, if you're shambles going into mid-game, since you got pushed off your drop or you died off spawn, you have to take a very different approach to this. Try to go dead side and find like a small POI that hasn't been looted yet. And once you do, just farm all the mats there and just try to get as many heals as you can going into endgame. Don't really worry too much about fights, since most of the time, it's not going to be one that you can win. Now, going into endgames, you should probably try to frag out as much as you can, since kills are very important, especially in ranked, and it's kind of easy during endgame since most players are either shambles backside or just sitting still and you can get a free beam on them. I wouldn't be too worried about taking height, since with grapplers, launch pads, and shockwaves in the game, it's very easy for it to get taken away from you. Now, let's quickly talk about the best loadout in solos. I would still suggest taking either the Havoc Pump or the regular Pump. I think they're both good either way. However, for the secondaries, I would suggest not taking the Twin Mag SMG simply because I don't think it has a lot of range. I would suggest either taking the Hammer AR or the Striker Burst AR. Hammer if you want to play slightly more aggressive, Striker Burst if you're just looking for more long-range tags. Also, do you guys like to play duos or solos? Let me know down below in the comments. But anyways, let's move on to more ranked specific tips. My biggest tip in ranked is that you have to use the map to your advantage. For example, on Venture, the moving zones are different than Oasis. On Venture, the moving zones are more like a regular game where it moves pretty far. However, in Oasis, they actually just close until there's no zone left. So if you're more of a passive player, I would suggest taking medkits to just play for heal off and secure yourself a win. I know it's not the most exciting thing, but if you don't want to fight, that's an easy way to secure wins. Also, in ranked, it is so important to just find the free kills as kids are coming out of the air. Since if you can literally just get 2 or 3 kills out of the air, you're guaranteed going up no matter what. Also, it only takes about a top 12 to actually go up, so it doesn't take a ton. So once you get to that top 12 point, you can kind of just relax a little bit and play for the win or play for kills. It doesn't really matter since you're going to be going up. By the way, I got these percentages from when I was in Champion, so if you're in Diamond or Elite or something like that, it'll be even easier for you to rank up. Anyways, that's all I have for this video, so thank you guys for watching till the end. Also, since I hit Unreal and Reload in 3 days, let me know if I should do a video talking about how I did it and just some general clips.